The January 6th committee comes up with a list of charges that they are going to stack against the former president. So we'll talk just a bit about what's going on with that. The Russians find a nuclear power plant and say, hey, you know what? Let's start throwing shells at it. So we'll talk just a bit about what's going on with that. Manchin has come up with a smaller Build Back Better bill that he would actually vote for, throwing water again on the massive social spending program. So we'll talk just a bit about what's going on with that. And YouTube has temporarily suspended The Hill. So we'll talk just a bit about what's going on with that. It is going to be all this and more. You're just mad you can't date me. I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Good morning, Ed Heads. Welcome to Contemporary. My name is Jay Edgar, and we have got another packed Friday here. So we're going to get into it pretty quick here. We're not going to pull a whole lot of filibuster at the top here because I want to see if we can actually have a decent length show coming up on Monday here, because I know I'm looking at the tabs across the top and knowing how much of it is Russia, and yeah, there's going to be a lot there, but we're going to get into it over here on Contemporary. And before we get started, first and foremost, for those of you sharing out, remember, put out the additional benefit for everybody that right now, we've got the live chat. This is Friday, so we're going to be looking at the live chat today. I have the names written down of everybody who chatted in the live chat right here in a notebook. So I'll say a special thank you to everybody here. We've had a couple really busy days this week. A little bit of a slow, well, there were plenty of people here yesterday, but not a lot of people chatted. But if you are just lurking today, make sure you get some messages in, because then I can look in that, I can find your name, and I can say thank you. Because I know I got Mr. Zed over on the Instagram side right now, but I can find your name, I can say thank you. That'll be a good sign. And also, we'll read some of the chats today, and if you, wow, I can't talk this morning. If what you have to say is sufficiently spicy, bigoted, hateful, or stupid, it will raise the intellectual level of this program, and of course it'll get read on the air. So definitely go and check that out. Go get some messages in and invite your friends. Let's see what they can pull up for spice, and see if they can find something that I'm going to look at and say, wow, I can't read that on YouTube. Anyway, let's go get into it here. Let's get started. But before we do, make sure you guys go check out turnsandpagesproductions.com. The start page for turnsandpagesproductions.com is up and live. We've got a fundraiser. I've got a contact Give Send Go and see if I can get my government name scrubbed off of there, because, well, I trust most of you guys that are watching here, but there are people out there that I don't want to have my government name, so we'll hold off on that for right now. But go check out the page where you can go check out once we get started. Very, very great programs such as The Daily Ignoramus, The Breakdown with Birkenhoff, The R-Rated Conservative, The Porch Boys, and a new upcoming project that will feature Britt and Sean Hickman. I've got to get some details on that and see where that's coming from. So go and check that out. It's going to be a great time. turnsandpagesproductions.com. It's going to be I've got big plans for this website. It's just a matter of getting the funding right now. So go and check that out. It's going to be a fun time. And if you do want to, and you're in the know, I'm not going to post the link right now because of the government name on there. But if you guys do want to go out there and throw something out there, givesendgo.com/turnssomepages101 is going to be the site for that. They're great, and I'm very pleased with the response that I've got from Give Send Go. You know, like I said before, they called me. The woman on the voicemail said a prayer for us to get started. I was very impressed by that. I'm very impressed by a lot of things that these guys do. They are trying to keep the site free for everybody and only go on a voluntary donation. I like that. I think that's great. So, I mean, even if you do have to do another fundraiser, go do one through Give Send Go and figure out what's going on with that, because, you know, they're far better than GoFundMe. Far, far better. And I mean, even if you're not Christian, like if you're atheist, Jewish, Islamist even, I don't know. Because they will say a prayer off there for you, but I mean, still, it's still better than Give Send Go, than GoFundMe. But go check that out. GiveSendGo.com/TurnSomePages101 if you want to help out. That would be much appreciated as we make sure that we get Bobby Joe paid because we like Bobby Joe around here, and we will go from there. All right, let's get into finance for the morning. The Dow was a whipsaw yesterday. It started off going up after yesterday's very good day on the Dow. Then it kind of dropped throughout the morning, coming back up around noon, and then dropped again towards the end of the day. It made it look like an attempt it was going to come back up again. That was to 33,794.66, which meant that it closed at 96.69 below its previous close, or lost about 1/3%. So we'll see what happens with there. It looks like that futures are hurting a little bit right now because of the nuclear power plant. Well, yeah, it's definitely not something that you want to see on the energy sector. Somebody in war shelling a plant that's not only just a power plant, but a nuclear one at that. So we'll talk about that as we get to it. Bitcoin dropped off throughout the day yesterday, dropping to $41,398 and 10 US cents. That is over $1,000 drop, $1,066 and 30 cents, or 2.5% throughout the day yesterday. So it looks like maybe the donations are drying up, or they're trying to cash out some of the donations right now into usable currency in the countries that are receiving the donations. But that's what we see off the Bitcoin. Scrap metal is actually looking very good right now. Copper, steel, and aluminum are all up right now. So right now is going to be the time where if you've got that scrap to run over to the recycling center, I would wait a little bit, especially if it's going to be on that trend. That first day that it drops, that would be the day that I would take my scrap in. But we'll look at some of the individual plays. Copper is all in the green right now, including brass and brass shells. Steel is all in the green right now, completely. Aluminum is a little bit more mixed. Aluminum siding is up. Copper fin radiators are up. Radiators regular have turned up. Cans are up, but sheet aluminum and aluminum rims are down. Looking at the individual plays, electric motors are down, ballasts are down, lead is down, batteries are up, catalytic converters are all up, compressors and alternators are down, carbide is up, hard drives are down, motherboards are up, PC power supplies, low-grade boards, and PC towers are all down. So that's where your scrap is looking at right now. So again, not official financial advice, but if you do need to take scrap in, I would wait for just a little bit until that starts to turn back south. Get it while it's at its peak or just a little bit below it. All right, from IBD to start the morning. Dow futures fall on Ukraine nuclear power plant news. Jobs report looms from Ed Carson. Dow futures fell solidly Friday morning, along with S&P 500 futures and NASDAQ futures after Russian troops seized Europe's largest nuclear power plant. Futures sold off Thursday night on reports that fire broke out at a Ukrainian nuclear power plant complex. Let me turn that down just a little bit more. A little bit loud. I don't even have the live chat up for you guys, and I don't know who is being spicy over here today, even though I know that I'll be looking into this here. Hey, there's a spicy one right now. Pele P4T. Want to become famous? By followers, primes, and viewers on yourfollows.com. Should we check that out? The stock market rally hit resistance at a key level on Thursday, reversing lower with the NASDAQ, small caps, and especially aggressive growth leading the slide. Meanwhile, investors turned their attention to Friday's jobs report due out before the stock market opened. That'll be fun. There was a fire in, Ukraine nuclear power plant facility. I can read this morning just as well as I can talk. There was a fire in or adjacent to the Zaporozhye. How bad can I butcher that name? And of course, I don't watch mainstream news, so I can't hear how the proper people are saying it. Zaporozhye. I have no idea. I'm not going to lie. I have no idea. Nuclear power plant complex on Thursday. I should probably learn this because I'm probably going to read this a couple more times throughout this program. Power plant on Thursday. Initial reports indicated that the nuclear power plant in southern Ukraine was under assault by Russian troops. Itself was on fire or in danger. Firefighters were eventually allowed into the facility, putting out the fire. Troops now control Zaporozhye, the largest nuclear power plant in Europe and one of the world's 10 largest. In 1986, while Ukraine was still part of the Soviet Union, the Chernobyl power plant had a major accident, widely seen as the worst in in terms of costs and casualties. And it's the reason, of course, why nobody else wants to see nuclear power plant ever, because they, especially in my generation, jump up and say, but Chernobyl! Earlier, Ukraine said an understanding has been reached with Russia on humanitarian corridors, letting Ukrainian civilians evacuate from besieged cities and letting in humanitarian aid that would involve local ceasefires around those corridors. But Vladimir Putin said on TV that his Ukraine invasion is going according to plan. The Russian military is gaining territory, especially in the south by the Black Sea, but it's suffering notable losses in troops and equipment, with nearly all of Russian forces that had been massed on Ukraine's border now committed to the fight. The economic plan continues to build, with growing calls to sanction Russian energy. Russia's stock market closed all this week, will remain closed until at least next Wednesday, but that appears to be forestalling the inevitable crash. Emmanuel Macron says he fears the worst is yet to come, following a lengthy phone call with Russian dictator Putin. He's president, not dictator. We're not looking here for your editorials and your op-eds on this. We want the news. Ed Carson, looking at you. He says Putin seems determined to continue his Ukrainian invasion until he controls all of the country. Russia has been using artillery and bombs to hit major cities, striking many residential areas. For the jobs report, at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time, the Labor Department will release the February jobs report. Economists expect non-farms to raise by 390,000, with the jobless rate dipping to 3.9%. With all the openings, that actually might be a possibility, but I've seen the ability of Biden to fuck everything up. Or the people who are trying to make a point fuck everything up. The Federal Reserve looks for signs of an increased workforce to ease supply chain bottlenecks and wage pressure. The Fed is expected to raise rates by a quarter point at its March 15th to 16th meeting, but the jobs report, the upcoming February Consumer Price Index, and Russia's Ukraine invasion could still alter that decision. On the futures, Dow futures sank almost 1%, 0.9% versus fair value. Futures turned sharply lower on the initial reports that the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant was on fire, then paired losses significantly that the now extinguished fire didn't threaten the plant itself. Seriously, ZHZH. How would you pronounce that? That sound? Four letters in a row that are all consonants. S&P 500 futures retreated 0.85%. NASDAQ futures slumped 0.7%. Crude oil rose 3%. The 10-year Treasury yield sank 7 basis points to 1.78%. As with stock futures, crude and Treasury yields swung overnight on the Ukraine nuclear power plant news. Dow futures are sure to move on the February jobs report before the market open. Remember, overnight action in Dow futures and elsewhere doesn't necessarily translate into actual trading in the next regular stock market session. So that's what we see coming from IBD. Let's grab one from Seeking Alpha. NASDAQ, S&P 500, and Dow Jones drop in choppy trading session. Kim Khan is the author of this one. The uncertain trading that has dominated the week so far continued on Thursday, with a choppy session ending in the major averages in negative territory. Investors showed caution amid an ongoing fighting in the Ukraine and the lingering prospect of rising interest rates. The NASDAQ dropped 1.6% on the session, the biggest decline among averages. The S&P concluded 0.5%, and the Dow was down 0.33%. Slight moderation in the losses going into the close. 7 of the 11 S&P sectors finished higher. However, only utilities and real estate showed gains of more than 1% on the session. On the downside, consumer discretionary led the way, falling by 2.4% on the day. Brent crude hit nearly $120 a barrel early in the session, but came down during the middle of the day. The commodity eventually fell on the day to reach levels around $111 a barrel. Wasn't it like $40 a barrel just a couple years ago? WTI rounded out the day below 109, losing ground on the session after touching 116 earlier on Thursday's action. Oil prices moderated after German economy minister Robert Habeck said he would impose an embargo of Russian oil and gas because he would threaten the social peace in the republic with that, according to Bloomberg. Treasury yields also experienced choppy trading, spending most of the day lower, flirting with gains during the afternoon. The 10-year came down about a basis point to 1.85, With late-day gains, the 2-year advanced nearly 2 basis points to approach 1.53%. In the economic news, jobless claims dropped to 215,000 last week, a 2-month low. The news came a day before the government is scheduled to release its monthly jobs report, a crucial set of economic statistics. So, hey look, we're almost back to where we were all the way back in March of 2020. But oh, look at me, I've created all these jobs. So that's what we see coming off of that. Let's grab one from USA Today before we get into the big news of the day. This is the one that I tried to read yesterday, but needed to be archived because, all we got down was the faded text right at this point, and then nothing else. But it's archived, and now let's talk just a bit about this because there is a level of Ukraine fatigue going on right now. People don't want to be glued to the TV and see the same story about Ukraine over and over again. And I've noticed that while I'm trying to fill out the Ukrainian portions of the show too. There's just less news going on. Unless, of course, there's something major like the fire. It's just, we had the initial attack. And we talked about that when it happened. And a couple days of breathless screaming and screeching about it. And then it's just been kind of going off, and there's a little bit of breathless screeching and screaming about the nuclear power plant again. But we have the fatigue coming in here, and of course now with the Build Back Bullshit plan that's being stalled in Congress, the next disaster is coming, and I know what it's going to be. It's going to be, now let's talk about a natural disaster and get everybody deeply and deathly afraid of a natural disaster. So from USA Today, it could happen tomorrow. Experts know disaster upon disaster looms for the West Coast. From Joel Shannon. It's the elevators that worry earthquake engineering expert Keith Porter the most. Scientists say a massive quake could strike the San Francisco Bay Area at any moment. Oh, shame. Oops, of course that would be a terrible thing. And when it does, the city can expect to be slammed with a force equal to 100 atomic bombs. Porter said the shaking will quickly cut off power in many areas. That means unsuspecting people will be trapped between floors and elevators without backup power. At peak commute times, the number of those trapped could be in the thousands. To escape, the survivors of the initial quake will need the help of firefighters with specialized tools and training, which they have. That's standard training for firefighters at this point because there's elevators in so goddamn many places. But the rescuers won't come, at least not right away. Firefighters will be battling infernos that could outnumber the region's fire engines. Running water will be short in supply, cell phone service may not work at all, the aftershocks will keep coming, and the electricity could remain off for weeks. That means people are dead in those elevators, Porter said. The situation Porter described comes from his work on Haywired scenario. Really? Because it kind of sounds like a Hollywood movie. A detailed look at the cascading calamities that will occur when a major earthquake strikes the Bay Area's Hayward Fault, including the possibility of widespread power outages that will strand elevators. Well, people go there and live there willingly. I don't know why. But they definitely go there and live there willingly. Knowing full well that the area sits on a massive fault line. And it's really expensive to live there too. But the weather's really nice all the time. Yeah, no. Weirdly enough, where I work, in the shelving areas, somebody in Wisconsin, I don't know if it's going to be the Department of Safety, Workforce Development, or Wisconsin's Occupational Safety and Health Administration, somebody in the Wisconsin bureaucracy told us that we needed to bolt all the shelves together with L brackets to make sure they can stay up in the event of an earthquake. And they're all bolted to the wall too, by the way. The closest fault line to where I live in Wisconsin, the Janesville area, is 367 miles away, and it's a minor fault line on that. The disaster remains theoretical for now, but the U.S. Geological Survey estimates a 51% chance that a quake as big as the one described on Haywire will occur in the region within 3 decades. It's one of several West Coast disasters, so likely that researchers have prepared painstakingly detailed scenarios in an attempt to ready themselves. If you didn't have any sort of inkling that you need to get out of San Francisco and California in and of itself, it's right here. And I'm not even saying that this is going to happen. I'm saying the fact that they're telling you it could happen is A, meaning they're going to regulate and restrict your businesses even more, and B, try to force you to buy more preparedness kits. Get the fuck out of there. The experts who worked on the projects are highly confident in the West Coast could at any moment face disasters with the destructive power to kill hundreds or thousands of people and forever change the lives of millions more. They also say there's far more that could be done to keep individuals and society safer. Yeah, not building major cities on major fault lines. It's not like you don't know this is here. The San Andreas Fault is so well known. When Rockstar made a video game making fun of Los Angeles, they called the fictional city San Andreas. It's not like you don't know this is coming. We're trying to have the earthquake without having one, Ann Wine told USA Today. Wine is a USGS researcher who co-leads the Haywired earthquake scenario and has worked on several other similar projects. So, yep, this is going to be the next big panic. Panic! Throw more money into cities and have your taxes raised because there might be an earthquake in San Francisco. Just wanted to read that for you guys and let you know that this is possibly happening. Let's get into the Trump news. Starting with Reuters, this is from March 1st. U.S. House panel hits pro-Trump lawyers with subpoenas over U.S. selfie fest. From Patricia Zengerle and Jan Wolf. The Congressional Committee investigating the deadly selfie fest on the U.S. Capitol said on Tuesday it had issued subpoenas to 6 people who promoted false claims that the 2020 presidential election was fraudulent and participated in, or encouraged actions based on those false claims. The individuals subpoenaed include Cleta Mitchell, a lawyer who advised the former president, and Christina Bobb, a reporter for the far-right Zero American News, who also worked part-time on the Trump legal team. A statement for the House of Representatives panel said. Subpoenas were also sent to the Trump campaign attorney Kenneth Chesebro, Washington lobbyist and attorney Catherine Price, Kurt Olson, a private attorney who contacted the DOJ on Trump's behalf, and Philip Klein, a former attorney general of Kansas. None of the 6 could be immediately reached for comment. The Select Committee is seeking information about the attempts to disrupt or delay the certification of electoral votes and any efforts to corruptly change the outcome of the 2020 election. Democratic Representative Benny Thompson, chairman of the January 6th Selfie Fest Committee, said in a statement, yeah, they're taking this whole hog right now. And again, they have nothing. And if they do have something, and I've looked at the criminal complaint a little bit, it's 67 pages. I haven't read it in full yet, but I've looked at it briefly, and it really sounds like they have nothing. I mean, they can sit back and beg Merrick Garland to do something about it, and Merrick Garland actually probably could. But there are a couple things that I have to say about that. But I want to read something a little bit more contemporary than this, because this is from March 1st. Let's look at Politico. January 6th committee says Trump violated multiple laws in an effort to overturn the election. This is from Kyle Cheney and Nicholas Wu. The January 6th Select Committee says its evidence has shown that then-President Trump and his campaign tried to illegally obstruct Congress's counting of the electoral votes and engaged in criminal conspiracy to defraud the U.S. In a major release of its findings, filed in a federal court late Wednesday, the committee suggested that its evidence supported findings that Trump himself violated multiple laws by attempting to prevent Congress from certifying its defeat. So, with this, we got to talk about what Congress's role in this and where that goes. So, first, this is the complaint. This is from Court Listener. U.S. District Court, Central District of California, because of course they're doing this in California. This is, I believe, the 9th District. John Eastman versus Benny Thompson and defendants, other defendants to be named later. And this is the 76 or 67-page deposition of what it is that they believe happened. So again, I have not read all the way through this. On a TLDR, it does look like they are going to go with obstruction of government process, which is a felony that carries a 5-year sentence. That's what it looks like they're going to try to slap it with. But again, I would like to read through this and some of the other evidence that was gathered to see what it was that they saw that the FBI didn't. And the other side of this, and I will put this in the Discord, by the way, and I'll also tweet it out after the show, so let me get this in the Discord now. So this is in the Discord for you guys to read. But the other side of this, and I was talking about this in another Discord, was the fact that Congress doesn't investigate crimes. That's not their purview. That's an executive branch feature. Except in the case of impeachment, because Congress has the sole investigative power for impeachment. But Congress themselves, they don't investigate crime, so they're working outside, far, far outside of their purview on this one. Far, far, far outside of their purview, except in the fact of making laws. But I mean, what law can they make? Oh, well, we're going to make a law making it illegal to obstruct a government process. There's already a law in the books for that. We're going to make it illegal for a former president to make an inflammatory speech outside. Okay, who's going to execute that? See, there's so much that's going on with this, and there's no purview for them to be investigating this. They're not trying to make or change a law, as far as I know. They're trying to go after a political enemy in a way that the DOJ has, thankfully, been reluctant to do so, with the partisanship showing off of it. So, if you guys want to read that for yourself, it's in the Discord, it's in articles. Actually, I should put that in general. Let's actually put that in general. Correction, it's in general, so you can go check that out. It's probably not going to be a long read. Maybe an hour to get through all the legalese, but there's no purview. This is a fact-finding mission so that they can come back out and figure out how they can prevent people that they don't like from running for office, because they can't come up with a strategy to keep them from winning. I'm sure Marjorie Taylor Greene is going to be on that, or they're going to talk about it, because I think that they've planted Marjorie Taylor Greene. I still do. But they'll also get like people like Madison Cawthorn, Lauren Boebert. Lauren Boebert was giving tours of the Capitol. But this is serious shit. The Select Committee has a good faith basis for concluding that the President and members of the campaign engaged in criminal conspiracy to defraud the U.S., the committee wrote in a filing submitted to the U.S. District Court in the Central District of California. Characterizing excerpts of nearly a dozen depositions from top aides to Trump and former Vice President Mike Pence, the committee described a president who had been informed repeatedly that he had lost the election, honk honk, and that his claims of fraud were unfounded, only to reject them, honk honk, and continue to mislead the American public, honk honk honkity fucking honk. He then pushed the top advisors to continue strategizing ways to overturn the election results. The panel released its findings as part of a legal push to force John Eastman, an attorney who was the key driver of Trump's strategy, to subvert the 2020 election to produce crucial emails tying together elements of the scheme they described. In 16 accompanying exhibits, the panel showcased testimony received from key figures in the Trump world, including campaign advisor Jason Miller, White House communications aide Ben Williamson, Pence National Security Advisor Keith Kellogg, Pence counsel Greg Jacob, and Pence Chief of Staff Mark Short. Top Justice Department officials also provided a crucial testimony revealed by the panel Wednesday night, including acting AG Jeff Rosen and his top advisor Richard Donahue. But Jeff Rosen, I guess he was AG towards the end because Barr got fired. A deposition of Eastman himself reveals that the Trump ally invoked his Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination nearly 150 times and declining to answer the committee's regulation. That's his right, you fucking moron. You have nothing. Other documents include a page from Trump's private January 6th schedule released to the January 6th Select Committee by the National Archives in recent weeks. The schedule includes an 11:20 call with Pence, as well as a call with then Senator Kelly Loeffler. Although the evidence offers insight to the contours of what's likely to be the committee's final report, it's only a small window into the 650 plus interviews the panel has conducted, which we are probably never going to see honk honk, because they have absolutely nothing. The committee suggests that Trump and his allies may have committed 3 distinct crimes: obstruction of an official proceeding, in this case Congress's January 6th session to count the electoral votes, which is the 5-year prison sentence, defrauding the U.S. by interfering in the election certification, and spreading false information about the results, a violation of the D.C. Common Fraud Law. So that would be a local law, not a federal law, which they again have no purview for that. If Muriel Bowser wants to press a charge against that, that's on Muriel Bowser. And I'm guessing she probably will. Aides to Trump did not respond to requests for comment, but Charles Berman, Eastman's attorney, offered the following response. Like all attorneys, John Eastman has a responsibility to protect client confidences. Even at a great personal risk and expense, the Select Committee has responded to Dr. Eastman's efforts to discharge the responsibility by accusing him of criminal activity. Because this is a civil matter, Dr. Eastman will not have the benefit of constitutional protections normally afforded to those accused by their government of criminal conduct. Nonetheless, we look forward to responding in due course. Give me just 1 second. I gotta step away for half a second. Apologies for that one, you guys. Alright, let's keep going off of this one. To prove Trump committed felony obstruction, investigators would have to show he corruptly intended to impede an official proceeding, and that's going to be the hard part of this. Because they're going to see intent. Because, again, what everybody keeps saying on Twitter about this is, well, he said fight like hell, and that means that he wanted to go back out there and make this happen. He said fight like hell. Don't you know? That means that he was dog whistling to his entire base to come back out and do this. He did say fight like hell. I will give him that, but he also told people not to go to the Capitol. He told them to go home with peace in their hearts. There were other entities involved in this, and that's a big part of the reason that we're not going to get a lot of the testimony off of this. I would like to see investigations into Mr. Epps, further than the mainstream media say, why are you talking about Mr. Epps? But it's going to be the intent that's going to be the hard part on this. And the committee says his work with Eastman to pressure Pence to take illegal acts could satisfy the requirement, particularly as Trump continued to spread claims of fraud that his own allies said were unfounded. Determining whether Trump violated criminal law on January 6th is a complex undertaking, though the panel's findings may drive up pressure on the Justice Department to reveal its own thinking on the matter. Persecutors have charged hundreds of Trump supporters who breached the Capitol with seeking to obstruct Congress's efforts to count illegal votes. But applying that law to the former president presents a trickier calculus. And also, a lot of these people have had their charges dropped to minor trespass. Not all. There have been a few who went in there and, they could prove intent on some of these people. But for the most part, this was a lot of monkey see, monkey do. And a lot of people who just got swept up in the crowd and wound up standing in the Capitol. And again, walked peacefully through the velvet ropes, and in many cases were let in by the Capitol Police. So that's what Politico's saying, is that they have charges. Now we need that evil Merrick Garland to actually make a charge. Alright, and AG Barr got into this as well. Let's talk about that just quickly before we get into the Russia news of the day. Ex-AG Barr reveals what led him to publicly state that we have not seen fraud on a scale that could have affected a different outcome in the election. From Chris Pandolfo. Former AG Bill Barr told his ex-boss, President Trump, that the legal team that Trump had assembled in 2020 to persecute his case, claiming the presidential election was stolen and a clown show, was feeding the American people bullshit in a heated confrontation in December of 2020. The details of that conversation come from an excerpt of Barr's upcoming memoir, shared by the Wall Street Journal. Before his account of the meeting with Trump and several of the president's senior advisors, the veteran Department of Justice chief gave reasons why he made the now infamous comments to the Associated Press reporter on December 1st, saying, "To date, we have not seen fraud on a scale that could have affected a different outcome of the election." And the main reason for this, we probably will never know, but the reason that he's saying this right now is because he has a book coming out. So, come on and buy my book and I'll tell you why I said this thing. Barr already betrayed him. Back then, Barr's statements put him at odds with the president and members of Trump's legal team, including Giuliani and Sidney Powell, both of whom were nuts, who had made the extraordinary claims of widespread voter fraud in the election that purportedly robbed Trump of victory. Trump's lawyers had asserted that a national conspiracy of voter fraud took place, including unsupported allegations that vulnerabilities in voting machine manufacturer Dominion, however, caused votes to switch from Trump to Biden in Hong Kong. Tilting the outcome of the election, Dominion vigorously denied the allegations and has taken Giuliani, Powell, and others to court in a $1.3 billion defamation lawsuit. No, it wasn't that. And of course, there was no election fraud. This was the freest, safest, and fairest election in history. Susan, don't ban me. But if there had been, it was most likely in a simulation, in a scenario, coming through the mail-in system. Coming through the system where you could suddenly find perfectly creased ballots with only one vote for the presidency and no votes down ballot in a few select municipalities that could swing an entire state in a few key states. And you notice too, this was the one that really got me. They got the number exactly to 306. No more, no less. More would probably have been overkill or something they couldn't have pulled off. But no more, no less for the vast majority of this. And 306 was a symbolic number. And I know that it was a symbolic number because they started saying landslide. And it was the same number that Trump beat Hillary Clinton with in the previous election. They had to get it to that. They had to get to that number because then they could say, well, of course, if they had done anything, but of course, nothing bad happened and everything was fair and every vote was proper and everything else that went along with that. But if they had, it would have been because they had to have the symbolism of now Trump being defeated. 306. Dominion vigorously denied the allegations and has taken Giuliani, Powell, and others to court in a $1.3 billion defamation lawsuit. After the former AG said there was no evidence to support the accusations of widespread fraud, because there was no fraud, obviously, Hong Kong, that would have changed the outcome of the election. His relationship with Trump and the reputation with Trump supporters was permanently damaged. According to Barr's account, claims the election had been stolen through fraud were grossly exaggerated, and the Justice Department lacked the authority to investigate the state-level election issues when there was no evidence that a crime had been committed. And that's also true, by the way. No matter what could have happened, Barr would not have been able to go down and investigate something on a state level. That is Article 2, Section 1. I had no doubt there was some fraud in the 2020 presidential election, even though there wasn't, Susan. Most recent, most fair election history. There's always some fraud in an election that large, except for the 2020 election, Bill Barr. Except for the 2020 election. Every vote was perfect, every vote was counted, and every vote was accounted for. Everything was perfect. Not a single thing went wrong in the 2020 election. Nothing. No fraud, no nothing. But the Justice Department had been looking into the claims made by the president's teams, and we have yet to see evidence of fraud on the scale necessary to change the outcomes of the election. He explained that data suggested Democrats had abused the Pinko-Pox pandemic-related rules to make changes to state election procedures. Nope, didn't happen either. In order to boost turnout through extended vote periods and eased access to mail-in voting, and you don't question that. Throughout 2020, Barr had been a consistent critic of the mail-in voting and warned that widespread voting by mail could create opportunities for election fraud that completely did not happen. So that's what Bill Barr is saying with that. And of course, if you want to know more, read the book. All right, let's go talk about Russia and Ukraine. Starting with the New York Post. Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky survives 3 assassination attempts in the last week. Report. Assassins have tried to kill Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky at least 3 times since Russia invaded the country last week, the new report says. The assassination plots were foiled when anti-war Russians fed intel into Ukraine about 2 separate mercenary groups that planned to launch the attacks, the Times of London reported. I can say that we have received information from Russia's Federal Security Service, who do not want to take part in bloody war, Ukrainian Secretary of National Security and Defense told local TV stations, according to the Times. The shadowy Kremlin-backed Wagner Group was behind 2 of the attempts, the Times reported. If they had been or are successful, Moscow could deny direct involvement in the assassination plot. They would be going in there with very high-profile mission. Something that Russians would want to be deniable. A decapitation of head of state is huge mission, a diplomatic source told the newspaper. In terms of impact on Russian sovereign policy, this would be perhaps biggest mission so far. It would have major impact on war. There are still more than 400 Wagner Group members in Kiev after... Oh, wait. Let's do this the way the mainstream media does it. Kyiv! After its members infiltrated Ukraine with a kill list of 24 officials whose deaths would cause chaos, Ukrainian government sources told the Times. Zelensky, 44, also dodged an assassination attempt on Saturday on the outskirts of Kiev when a group of Chechen assassins were taken out before they could get to Ukraine's charismatic leader, an actor turned politician who has been defiant against Russia, leader Vladimir Putin. So, according to, and once again, one of the things that we need to discuss and wonder about with this is whether or not any of this is happening, because we're taking a lot of stuff at face value that I don't blatantly believe at this point. But if we take this at face value, then yeah, that's three shots that they've tried to take at the president. Because once the head of state falls, you usually win the war. But on the other side of the aisle, on the other side of the conflict, Lindsey Graham got into this. Lindsey Graham! Graham calls for somebody in Russia to take Putin out. From Lexi Lonis. Republican Senator Lindsey Graham on Thursday called for somebody in Russia to take out the president amid the invasion of Ukraine. Sugar, is there a Brutus in Russia? Is there a more successful Colonel Stauffenberg in the Russian military? Graham posted on Twitter referring to the assassination of Roman dictator Julius Caesar and the attempted assassination of Adolf Hitler. The only way this ends for someone in Russia, to take this guy out, and boy, Sugar, I know about taking guys out. You would be doing your country and the world a great service, Sugar, Graham added. Graham's tweets came as Russia and Putin face accusations of committing war crimes as Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and U.S. officials say the Russian president had been targeting civilian areas such as hospitals and schools. Graham's comments quickly drew rebukes on Twitter by Republicans and Democrats who found it irresponsible for the U.S. official to call for the death of a leader of another country. Seriously? What the fuck? Ilhan Omar of Minnesota, or Somalia rather, Somalia, tweeted, I really wish our members of Congress could cool it and regulate their remarks as the administration works to avoid World War III. Because some people might do something. As the world pays attention to how the US and its leaders are responding, Lindsey's remarks and... You're not supposed to be calling a male by his first name unless you're married to him. And remarks made by some House members aren't helpful. Fellow GOP Senator Ted Cruz also decreed Graham's comments. This is an exceptionally bad idea. Use massive economic sanctions, boycott Russian oil and gas, and provide military aid so the Ukrainians can defend themselves, Cruz tweeted. But we should not be calling for the assassination of heads of state. Yeah, Omar's actually right for once. Yeah, it's few and far between. It happens every once in a while. It's not the first time it's happened, but it might be the third. Graham continued to say how Russian people are the only way that Putin's dictatorship ends, as thousands of Russians have been arrested for protesting in the invasion of Ukraine. The only people who can fix this are the Russian people, Sugar. Easy to say, hard to do. And boy, Sugar, I know about things that are hard to do. Unless you want to live in darkness for the rest of your life, be isolated from the rest of the world in abject poverty, and live in darkness, you need to step up to the plate. No, this is not the way to do this. And in fact, if we do find an attempt, this might be a justification for a national leader who is officially ready to go launch nuclear weapons to call this West intervention and get rid of Los Angeles. Cousin of mine, who I will not name on air, it might be time for you to come back home, for at least for a little while. Because after that, after I get the people I care about out of Los Angeles, I don't really care what happens to that city. Or Chicago, that would suck. Or New York, that would also suck. Unless we can get the people I care about out of there. Or many other places around. This is a bad idea. But Graham is not done, by the way. Senator Graham. Russia's oil sector is the Achilles heel of Putin's war machine, and the U.S. needs to go after it, Sugar. From Fox News staff. Lindsey Graham told the story on Thursday that it's time for America to stop purchasing oil and gas from Russia and start putting Putin's military commanders in jail for war crimes. That's actually not a bad idea. Lindsey Graham. For 20 years, Putin has murdered his own people, imprisoned dissidents, opposition leaders in his country, committed war crimes in Syria and Chechnya, but nothing happened. The game has changed. The off-ramp for Putin would be built by the Russian people, not the West. How do you get the off-ramp built? We're going to crush that ruble. Joe Manchin has a bill supported by Nancy Pelosi that would ban all Russian imports into the United States in terms of oil and gas. 4% of our oil supply comes from Russia, Sugar. We can easily make that up. Except we promised our people that we wouldn't, or at least Nancy Pelosi and Joe Biden didn't. What we haven't done yet is to go after the oil and gas sector in Russia. That's the Achilles heel to Putin's war machine. I think we can crush that ruble and start putting his military commanders under indictment for war crimes. This is our chance to take this guy out, but taking him out will come from the Russian people. Which that actually is not wrong. You contrast this to the comment that this guy just made about going to try to assassinate the head of another country, which, as Randy pointed out, was it Randy or was it Arvold? Let me fact check myself here for a second. No, as Randy said, if someone in another country's government did that, we'd be mobilizing already. Yeah, we would be. So, he's not wrong, and it might be time to open up that pipeline again, because we can definitely make up that 4% in a hurry through Keystone. Tell the Canadians, we like the fact that you're going to run this through our country, but we're taking off the top too. And if we take off the top, we're not charging you a fee to run it through the country. So, that's Lindsey Graham today. From the Associated Press, Russia shells Europe's largest nuclear plant, starting a fire. From Jim Heinz, Uros Carmenau, and Dude, there is one vowel in that entire name. Unless you count Y as a vowel. Mstislav Chernov? I have no idea. There is one vowel in that name. Russian forces pressed their attacks on crucial energy-producing Ukrainian city by shelling Europe's largest nuclear plant early on Friday, sparking a fire and raising fears that radiation could leak from the damaged power station. The assault on the eastern city of Enerhodar and its... Alright, now we gotta figure out how to pronounce this. Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant came as the invasion entered its second week, with Russian forces gaining ground in their bid to cut off the country from the sea. Elsewhere, another round of talks between the two sides yielded a tentative agreement to set up safe corridors in the Ukraine to evacuate citizens and deliver humanitarian aid. Nuclear plant spokesman Andrei Tuz told Ukrainian television that shells were falling directly in the facility and had set fire to one of its 6 reactors. The reactor is under renovation and not operating, but there's nuclear fuel inside, he said. Hey look, Ron Helton is here, talking about the corrupt government. Firefighters cannot get near the flames because they're being shot at, he said, and Ukrainian Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba tweeted a plea to the Russians to stop the assault and allow fire teams inside. We demand that they stop heavy weapons fire, Tuz said in a video statement. There's a real threat of nuclear danger in the biggest atomic energy station in Europe. The attack renewed fears that the invasion could result in the damage to one of Ukraine's 15 nuclear reactors and trigger another emergency like the 86 Chernobyl incident and the world's worst nuclear disaster, which happened about 110 kilometers, or 65 miles if you're not talking in communist numbers, north of the capital. The American Nuclear Society condemned the attack, but said the latest radiation levels remained within natural background levels. The real threat to Ukrainian lives continues to be the violent invasion and bombing of their country, the group said in a statement from the president, Stephen Nesbitt, and executive director and CEO Craig Piercy. The plant's reactor is a different type than the one used at Chernobyl, and there should be little risk if the containment vessel is not damaged and the outside power can be restored, said John B. Wolfstall, a former senior director for arms control and non-proliferation at the National Security Council and former special advisor to then Vice President Joe Biden. Everyone needs to step back and not jump to conclusions, Wolfstall, now a senior advisor at Global Zero, said on Twitter. The International Atomic Energy Agency said it was in contact with authorities on Ukraine. The agency's Director General, Mariano Grossi, urged military forces to refrain from violence near the plant. The mayor of Enerhodar said earlier that Ukrainian forces were battling Russian troops in the city's outskirts. Video showed flames and black smoke rising above the city of more than 50,000, with people streaming past wrecked cars. Just a day after the UN Atomic Watchdog Agency expressed grave concern that the fighting could cause accidental damage to Ukraine's 15 nuclear reactors. The Ukrainian State Atomic Energy Company reported that Russian military column was headed towards the nuclear plant. Loud shots and rocket fire were heard late on Thursday. Many young men in athletic clothes and armed with Kalashnikovs have come into the city. They're breaking down doors and trying to get into the apartments of local residents, the statement from Energotam said. Wait, are they seriously running around in tracksuits with Kalashnikovs? Are you serious right now? Is this much of a stereotype? Later, a live-stream security camera linked from the homepage of the Zaporizhzhia plant showed what appeared to be armored vehicles rolling in the facility's parking lot and shining spotlights on the building where the camera was mounted. So, this is, of course, because of the shelling at the power plant. And all I gotta say is, again, now, as was pointed out in the chat, a nuclear reactor doesn't blow up the same way a nuclear bomb does, that's true, but it does, if the containment breaches, still leak radiation out to the surrounding city. For a good, probably 20 to 30 miles, if not more. So there still is a major danger to this, including making the area uninhabitable for at least 10 years. But I know that, like was also pointed out, around Chernobyl is now a thriving wildlife reserve. because all the radiation was able to clear up. I mean, it's not going to be like Fallout, where you have 220 years of radiation around you, and the sky is still green 220 years later. It's not going to be like that, but we're still looking at the fact that there's going to be some danger for at least a few years off of this. People's lives in ruins, people not be able to go home, go get their stuff like that. But, I mean, looking at this, you gotta wonder what was going through the military commander's head. Hey, let's go shell this nuclear power plant. Let's see what happens. Well, we're standing here in danger of ghoulifying our entire force. But that's what we see from that. Let's grab one from CNN. Ukrainian nuclear plant fire extinguished as Russian troops occupy the facility. From Simone McCarthy. Russian troops have occupied Ukraine's largest nuclear power plant, where a fire that had threatened potential disaster was extinguished in the early hours Friday morning, according to Ukraine's nuclear regulator. Let's actually look at this. Apparently this is an image of the shelling, or video of the shelling. Let's have a look.
Firefighters have managed to extinguish the fire that had been raging at a power plant in Ukraine following fighting between Ukrainian and Russian forces, a nuclear power plant. Now I'm going to show you the video there. You can see it. This is from a little bit earlier. The bright light you see on screen is from a flare gun, not gunshots or explosives, although there was incoming fire. Now, the nuclear power plant, this is in southeastern Ukraine. It is the largest in Europe. Officials stressing that radiation levels have not been elevated at all throughout this. Ukraine's president offering his condemnation of Russia for the attack.
We
contacted our partners. I talked to Charles Michel, Scholz, I talked to Duda, I talked to President Biden. We have contacted President Rafael Grossi, also Prime Minister Johnson, and we warn everyone that no other country other than Russia has ever fired on nuclear power units. This is the first time in our history, in the history of mankind, the terrorist state now resorted to nuclear terror.
Which, and again, I mean, you're not going to get an explosion off of something like this. It is going to be just a very, very heavy radiation that, again, 5 to 10 years, that area is uninhabitable. So that's what we see off of that. And, I mean, it's still scary, the fact that people think that this is a good idea, regardless. In a statement on Friday, early morning local time, the State Nuclear Regulatory Inspectorate confirmed that to Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant in southeastern Ukraine was occupied by Russian military forces, but said officials remained in contact with plant management. The power plant's 6 reactors remained intact, though through the compartment auxiliary buildings, 4 reactor 1 had been damaged. The SNRI said in a statement, 4 of the remaining units are being cooled down, while the 1 unit is providing power, the statement said. Separately, Ukraine's nuclear power operator, Energoatom, said the administration building of the checkpoint at the station were under occupiers' control. It said staff are working on the power units to ensure their stable operation. Unfortunately, there are dead and wounded among the Ukrainian defenders of the station, Energoatom added in a statement posted to Telegram. I still can't get over the fact that when they went into this, they did it in fucking tracksuits. That is amazing. Petro Kotin, the head of Energoatom, later revealed that management were operating at gunpoint. He said on Telegram that Russian forces entered the territory of the nuclear power plant, took control of the personnel and management of the nuclear power plant. I can't believe how much these mainstream outlets are using Telegram as a source. I thought that was a Nazi site. But yeah, that's probably still not a good idea. President Brandon got into this and responded. Do we have a video of President Brandon responding? No, we do not, unfortunately. President Biden responded to the Russian attack on the Ukrainian nuclear power plant from Ben Zizloft. President Biden responded to the Russian attack on Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant in Ukraine, with Ukrainian officials claim could lead to disaster 10 times larger than Chernobyl. According to a statement from the White House, President Biden spoke with the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky on Thursday evening to receive an update on the fire at the facility. Biden joined Zelensky in urging Russia to cease its military activities in the area and allow firefighters and emergency responders to access the site. Biden also spoke this evening with Undersecretary for Nuclear Security of the U.S. Department of Energy and Administrator of the National Nuclear Security Administration, Jill Ruby, to receive an update on the station at the plant. According to the statement, the president will continue to be briefed regularly. On Thursday, Ukrainian Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba announced that the Russian army is firing from all sides upon Zaporizhzhia NPP, the largest nuclear power plant in Europe. Fire has already broke out. If it blows up, it will be 10 times larger than Chernobyl. Russians must immediately cease the fire, allow firefighters, and establish a security zone. The International Atomic Energy Agency also said on social media that they are aware of the reports of shelling at Zaporizhzhia and are in contact with the Ukrainian authorities about the situation. So during the State of the Union address, of course, Biden came out and talked about this, and we talked about that extensively, but yeah, there's not a whole lot that he can do from where he's sitting. All right, from the blaze. Ukrainians reportedly take joyride on captured Russian tank as other vehicles are set ablaze or hauled away with tractors. From Phil Shiver. A group of Ukrainian men allegedly took a captured Russian tank for a joyride through snow-covered fields this week, while others set fire to the vehicles or hauled them away using tractors, according to video clips shared online in recent days. In the first video clip, which has now gone viral, a group of men are seen cheering and laughing as they ride atop of a T-80 BBM armored tank in the field of Kharkiv. The man filming the scene on his cell phone reportedly shouts, "We did it! And glory to Ukraine!" while his compatriots laugh and yell along with him. The video, purportedly first uploaded to Telegram, has since been shared online with several different social media accounts, including a Twitter account operated by Barstool Sports called ZeroBlog30. Let's watch. Ukrainians took over a Russian tank, learned how to use it, and now just need some orange mocha frappuccinos to really have a party.
Так, у нас все получилось. Все ваши, блядь, на танке, блядь. Охуеть! Слава Украине, Славяну, молодцы мы! Первый ударный танк. Кацапский танк послужит Украине, блядь.
I have no idea what they're saying, but it sounds hilarious. It wasn't immediately clear how the men commandeered the vehicle. However, reports of Russian troops abandoning the tanks and other weaponry amid fighting in Ukraine have become widespread. Newsweek reported Tuesday that a barrage of recent social media posts show Russian forces within the occupied country leaving military vehicles behind and fleeing combat. Open source intelligence monitor OSINT Defender tweeted a video earlier this week reporting that Russian troops fled a depot in the Sumy region, leaving behind BMPs, BTR-80s, MTLBs, and infantry transport vehicles. Here's the tweet. Ukrainian citizens are reporting that Russian forces at a depot in the Sumy region abandoned the outpost and fled into the woods during the night, leaving behind BMPs, BTR-80s, MTLBs, and infantry... Well, yeah, the sentence we just read.
Чемодановка, Сумська область, Україна. Бурушена кацапська техніка. БТР, Урал, МТЛБ, БМП-1, БТР связі і ще 2 БТРа. З метками. Так, хлопці, акуратно, щоб подивитися, чи нема нічого. Двушка. Ну і все.
Other abandoned vehicles reportedly included the 152mm MSTA-S self-propelled howitzer. Ooh, that sounds like fun. one V-13 command vehicle, T-80U tank, and logistical trucks, according to the Twitter account Ukraine Weapons Tracker. And there's some pictures of some of the equipment that's out there. Belarusian media outlet Nexta posted a video on Thursday purportedly showing a line of Russian tanks being set ablaze near Nikolaev, now known as Mykolaiv. Is it just because they can't fuel it, or what's the story? Why are they setting them on fire? I don't know. Meanwhile, Ukrainian farmers have gained some notoriety on social media for allegedly hauling away abandoned Russian tanks using tractors. According to a report from British magazine Farmers Weekly, in one video, a tank is pulled down a street as someone chases after it.
Это, блядь, хит, нахуй, пиздец, спиздили технику, блядь. Охуеть.
Again, no idea what they're saying, but that's funny. I like that. The magazine quoted an anonymous source who said a Russian soldier got lost and got out of his armored personnel carrier. He wandered off and the farmer came and took the tractor. The armored personnel carrier had been left unattended, so the farmer decided to nick it. In a separate video, an alleged Ukrainian farmer appears to tow away another Russian vehicle as bystanders wave and cheer. Look at that. Mine, bitches! It's mine now. Fuck you.
Молодці. Крас.
The Blaze cannot independently verify the accuracy of the videos included in this report. Well, we see them. We don't know the exact situation in there because I'm sure that not a lot of us speak Russian, but we see them. Alright, what else do we have? Another one from Fox. Some on the humanitarian side of things, Russia-Ukraine crisis. Bethany Frankel says her Be Strong Foundation is hoping to help 1 million refugees. From Julius Young. Bethany Frankel is doing what she can to help amid a crisis in Ukraine. The philanthropist and entrepreneur joined Fox News' The Story with Martha McCallum on Thursday to discuss her worldwide initiative to help Ukrainian citizens affected by the Russian invasion. The former Real Housewives of New York City star is hoping to help 1 million refugees and said her Be Strong Worldwide initiative and its partners are currently in the process of working on 1,000 people right now to get them relocated. To make it clear, the mandate is refugees in and aid out. And that's of Ukraine, she said, explaining the relocation efforts are very organized and having travel partners to book refugee tickets by plane, train, and handle transportation for them to get these refugees to where they need to go. While many of the country's citizens have fled to nearby Poland, Frankel said her nonprofit is working on a very substantial lodging partnership that will be a way that we can get these people someplace to stay around Poland or in other countries. The businesswoman described that the relocation plan was a really good and tight-knit in its organization and explained to McCallum that we've raised more than $6 million for an average of about $1 million a day, and that money is for mostly relocation. So, good on them. And with the talks to allow the citizens out at least, so this can all just be a war zone between soldiers, that's not a bad idea. Now, again, my big question is going to be, are men between 18 and 60 going to be allowed to leave with this and take advantage of this? Because as far as I know, according to Zelensky, that's no. But yeah, I mean, if there's real fighting going on there, especially if they're blowing up nuclear plants, then yeah, it's time to get some of these people up out of there. From Axios, Chicago's Eastern Europeans unite on Ukraine. From Monica Eng. The Russian invasion of Ukraine has ignited a blaze of support from Chicago's prodigious Eastern European immigrant communities, of which there are many. The support reflects the strength of the local Eastern European diaspora and shared memories of Soviet dominance. Chicagoans of Polish, Lithuanian, Latvian, Estonian, and even Russian heritage have joined with Ukrainian Americans and others at rallies while hosting their own solidarity events. The Lithuanian community held a vigil Wednesday night at the Lithuanian World Center in Lemont. 2 Polish artists have organized an art fundraiser today and tomorrow for Ukraine at the Chicago Public Arts Group in Bridgeport. We see them as brothers, and so we're in a high state of festivity, John Platakis of the National Lithuanian American Hall of Fame tells Axios. We've had more than a century of experience under Soviet domination, and we've been telling the world this is going to happen. For Polish-American TV host and historian Daniel Pogorzelski, the war carries echoes of its own relatives' deaths and persecutions by the Soviets in Kiev. Kiev! Their ghosts linger for us as we read about the thousands of people dying as the war breaks out in lands to which our ancestors connected. He tells Axios that kinship is suffering is why I believe folks have been so motivated to help. And, we see this, and we see people who are actually involved in a lot of this because some of them are first, second generation immigrants that come from Soviet rule. These are people who actually have a standing to be involved in some of this, but a lot of the U.S. progressives right now are just doing this because it's cool and it's trendy. And as been pointed out, countries that a lot of them didn't even know existed yesterday. With the vast majority of this country being not of Eastern European diaspora, but more of German, Norwegian, and English diaspora. So, that's what we see off of that. Now let's talk just a little bit more about what else is going on with this. From Forbes, I think we're just going to talk about President Trump and Ukraine today, because we're running up on the clock. We'll see if we can get a little bit more, but man, we've got a lot of stuff still. I do not care, Saudi Crown Prince shrugs off concerns from Biden over Khashoggi assassination. From Nicholas Riemann, and one of the things off of this here is, in his little bio here, I cover national politics with a focus on Donald Trump. And this guy just looks like a fucking soy sucker too. Despite U.S. intelligence finding that Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman ordered the assassination of Washington Post journalist Jamal Khashoggi in 2018, Saudi Arabia's de facto leader is still denying he had any role in killing, blasting Biden's call for accountability in a wide-ranging interview published by The Atlantic on Thursday. Let's see. Bin Salman was commonly known by his initials, MBS, claimed it was obvious he didn't order Khashoggi's killing, saying the Washington Post columnist was a well-known critic of the Saudi government and was not important enough to warrant an assassination. Biden has not met with MBS since taking office, and during his presidential campaign vowed to make Saudi Arabia pay for the price for killing and other alleged human rights violations, calling the Middle Eastern nation a pariah. Because we're allied with them. And we did so, I think, under your watch, didn't we? As vice president. MBS told The Atlantic, "Simply, I do not care if Biden misunderstands him," adding, "It's up to him to think about the interests of America." The prince also suggested that Saudi Arabia, long considered a U.S. ally, may seek a closer relationship with China, saying, "I believe other people in the East are going to be super happy if U.S.-Saudi relationship continues to devolve." The interview was the first time MBS gave a non-Saudi news outlet more than in 2 years, according to The Atlantic. Yeah, dude, nobody cares what Biden has to say on the world stage. Nobody respects the dude. The adults are back in charge. And by the adults are back in charge, I mean we're sitting here and all these people are now coming back and giving the finger to the Brandon admin. Because they don't care. Because they can get away with whatever they want. From CNBC, White House asked Congress for an additional $32.5 billion to support Ukraine and fight the pinko pox. The White House asked Congress to immediately approve $32.5 billion in emergency funding as it continues to fight against the pinko pox and support Ukraine as it weathers a Russian invasion. The Biden admin is seeking $10 billion in immediate emergency aid to bolster humanitarian supplies, security forces, and the economies in Ukraine and its Central European partners. That's coming off of your taxpayer dollars, by the way. According to the new request sent to Congress from the Office of Management and Budget, the remaining $22.5 billion would go towards securing the supply of pinkopox antiviral treatments, funding testing and vaccination, and working to develop vaccines to protect against future variants, according to OMB. I urge the Congress to address these critical and urgent needs as part of the comprehensive government funding bill ahead of the March 11th funding deadline, OMB Acting Director Shalonda Young said in a letter to the White House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and others leading Democrats dated on Wednesday. Which, by the way, that's coming up in a week, the next government shutdown. Young's letter said even more money for Ukraine in the fight against COVID will likely be needed down the road. Why? And I need an accounting. I need accounting for this as to where this money actually goes. Itemized list. But of course, you're never going to get an itemized list off this because we won't pass a budget that people can read. We'll never pass that kind of budget. Ever. Let's talk about this one. MSNBC's Chris Hayes gets torched for suggesting the U.S. turn to Iran for help to relieve gas prices. Or, we could just use what we have in this country. From Carlos Garcia. MSDNC host Chris Hayes got lambasted on social media for suggesting the U.S. help alleviate the skyrocketing price of gas by turning to the Iranian regime for help. Hayes linked the proposal to buy gas from Iran in response to increased prices caused by the Russian invasion of Ukraine, as well as from growing inflation. If you're A, devoted to cutting off Russia's oil revenues, and B, worried about inflation and spiking oil prices, this is one possible solution, Hayes tweeted. Hayes is, of course, quote tweeting Ryan Cooper. Ryan Cooper tweets out, Iran has 103 million barrels of oil loaded up on tankers ready to go. CC Joe Biden, and links to a Bloomberg News article. Critics excoriated Hayes in the suggestion to seek oil from another murderous regime in response to the military aggression of another murderous regime. Actually, giving billions to American murdering terrorists is a really bad idea, responded Republican Senator Ted Cruz of Texas. Oh great, give our money to Iran instead of Russia, much better than revamping domestic production, read one popular tweet. Maybe start producing more of our own oil and gas, like we're doing until Joe happened, said another critic. And yeah, for the most part, this is just over and over again talking about the fact that we have oil over here that we could use, instead of opening up the strategic reserves for a future military conflict or other natural disaster. Alright. What else? From the Daily Wire. Aren't we financing the war? Fox reporter corners Jen Psaki on U.S. buying Russian oil. From Virginia Kruta. Fox News White House correspondent Jackie Heinrich challenged press secretary red-haired bobblehead directly during Thursday's briefing, asking whether or not the U.S. was effectively financing the war Russia continues to wage against Ukraine. Let's listen.
As long as we're buying Russian oil, though, aren't we financing the war?
Well, Jackie, again, it's only about 10% of what we're importing. I've not made any announcement about any decision on that front, but our objective here and our focus is making sure that any step we take maximizes the impact on President Putin and minimizes it on the American people. And anyone who's calling for an end to the carve-out should be clear that that would raise prices.
Yeah, that's true. And going on there, Jackie Time, you said it's not in our strategic interest to reduce the supply. We also know Biden talked about increasing domestic manufacturing to bring down prices on inflated items. Why not apply the same logic to energy and increase domestic production here? Let's listen.
On gas, you just said that, less supply raises prices. It's not in our strategic interest to reduce the supply. Yeah. We also know, the president as recently as yesterday talked about increasing domestic manufacturing to bring down prices on inflated items like goods. So why not apply the same logic to energy and increase domestic production here?
Well, there are 9,000 approved oil leases that the oil companies are not tapping into currently. So I would ask them that question.
Which, we should. Definitely. If there are oil leases out there, they definitely should be going after that. One more from Jackie Heinrich. Is there nothing the administration could do to get those providers back to pre-pandemic levels?
Is there nothing that the administration can do to get those providers back to pre-pandemic levels?
Do you think the oil companies don't have enough money to drill on the places that have been pre-approved?
Just asking.
I would point that question to them, and we can talk about it more tomorrow when you learn more.
So she has no answer.
Do you think that opening the Keystone pipeline and having more energy-friendly policies might do that?
The Keystone pipeline has never been operational. It would take years for that to have any impact. I know a number of members of Congress have suggested that, but that is a proposed solution that has no relationship or would have no impact on what the problem is. We here all agree is an issue.
But still, again, like I said at the top of the show, open that motherfucker up. Open it up. Get it out there. And tell Canada if they're going to transport their gas, which again, the leftoids are right on that. They're correct on that. That was never intended to provide oil and gas to the U.S., but, now is the time to come back and tell them, okay, if you're going to run this through there, your toll for doing this is going to be, we get some of your oil and gas. That's the toll. Take it or don't transport your shit through our country. So that's what they say to that. And, yes, we do need to be pushing to get more. She's right. There are a bunch of leases out in this country, but get more. You've shut down the ability to make new leases. Let them open them back up. Let them tap into them. Hell, at this point, even though Mexico is kind of at a tenuous relationship with the U.S. because of cartel violence, it might be time to go back in and start making a deal with our neighbors to the south, who are sitting on one of the biggest oil fields in the world. Hey, maybe we can come down and set up a little bit of drilling here, and you make a little bit of money, and we make a little bit of energy. It works out for everybody. Maybe start doing that, but I don't know. There are a lot of better things we can be doing, but rather than getting oil from across the Atlantic Ocean. There are a lot of better things that we could be doing. But we made a promise to our people that we wouldn't do them. All right. We are up and out of time, and there's so much more that I want to get to here. This is going to be a long Monday show, I can tell you. I did want to do this one here because this came out of my state, though. And it's really weird. Don't do drugs, kids. From the Blaze. Woman charged with gruesome meth-fueled sex murder after a mom finds her son's severed head in a bucket in her basement. Don't worry, it gets worse. This is from Carlos Garcia. A Green Bay, Wisconsin woman was charged with gruesome murder after a mother discovered her son's severed head in a bucket in her basement. Police charged 24-year-old Taylor Shabiznes with intentional homicide, mutilating a corpse, and sexual assault on Tuesday. The mother of the victim, a 25-year-old man, called the police about 3:25 a.m. on February 23rd after finding his severed head in a bucket in her basement. When police arrived, they found the severed head and dried blood on a mattress in the basement, according to the criminal complaint. Upon learning that Shabiznes was the last person to see the man, they found her at her home. Police said she had blood on her clothing, and they discovered a crock pot with additional human body parts, including legs inside. It gets worse. After obtaining a warrant, police said they found additional body parts of the man in the first home, including a male organ in the bucket and an upper torso in a storage tote. Yeah, she cut off his junk. Police said that Shabiznes told them that she and the man had smoked methamphetamine and began having sex with each other, but at some point she went crazy and strangled the man with her bare hands. Shabiznes responded that police were going to have fun trying to find all the organs as she dismembered the body. Shabiznes stated all the body parts should be in the basement. Shabiznes stated that there should be a foot or leg in the minivan, read the complaint according to WBAY-TV. It gets worse. The complaint alleges that Shabiznes told police she intended to bring all the body parts with her, but she got paranoid and lazy, saying it was likely the meth that made her feel that way. Police say she used the bread knife to mutilate the body. Jesus Christ, how long was she high? Because that had to take a long time. The complaint says she asked detectives if they knew what it was like to love something so much that you kill it. Bail was set for Shabiznes at $2 million because of the violent nature of the charges, but yet, $1,000 cash to let Darrell E. Brooks Jr. out after he ran a woman over with a car. Here's the local news video about the incident.
24-year-old woman from Green Bay is currently jailed on 3 charges, including first-degree murder. Details released today are deeply disturbing, including how the victim's mother discovered her son. Fox 11's Nick Harrington brings us the very latest.
You're looking at a home on Stony Brook Lane on the west side of Green Bay, the scene where a murder occurred on February.
Holy shit, I know where that is. I know exactly where that is. That is not far from where my ex-fiance grew up. I hadn't watched the video yet before, but as soon as I heard the street name, I knew exactly where that was.
February 23rd. On Tuesday, Taylor Shabiznes appeared in Brown County Court via Zoom, locked behind a door. The 24-year-old is charged with first-degree homicide, mutilating a corpse, and third-degree sexual assault.
The facts alleged are extremely concerning and disturbing and go to the violent nature and the grave nature of the offense.
Disturbing on multiple fronts. According to the criminal complaint, Shabiznes and the victim were both high on drugs, the victim dying due to strangulation. Court records show she watched as he coughed up blood waiting for him to die, later saying, quote, "Yeah, I liked it." Shabiznes allegedly removed the victim's head from his body, placing it inside of a bucket, then draping a blanket over it. With horrific details emerging on Tuesday from last week's murder, it somehow keeps getting even more gruesome, as the victim's mother was the one to discover the severed head. The criminal complaint shows the victim's mother was awakened between 2:30 and 3 in the morning on February 23rd from a door being slammed. Thinking Shabiznes had left, the mother went into the basement, and as she was walking up the stairs, she noticed the bucket. After removing the blanket, she saw the victim's head. Shabiznes allegedly told police all the body parts should be in the basement, but a foot or leg should be in a minivan. She is scheduled to next appear in court on March 22nd, while being held on an incredibly high bond.
I think that given all these circumstances and factors, that $2 million cash fund is appropriate. I'll also order the defendant not to have any contact with the victim's family.
Today, the NFL Combine got underway in Indianapolis, bringing together
So that's the news story there. Now, I have it on good authority, even though the Blaze didn't talk about it. I've looked at this from several other local news outlets, and the other side of this, before she started, and while she was cutting the dude up, she continued having sex with the body after he was dead. She continued screwing him after she killed him. And as the body parts were coming off, she kept going back in for another round. This is like some Florida level meth shit. And it happened right here in the frozen tundra. All right. With that, now that you guys are all happy about knowing that news story, let's look in the live chat. So, as we do on Friday, every week, we go in and look at some of the live chat, even if it does take us a little bit long. And let's see what you guys have had to say. And for Friday's live chat, if what you have to say is sufficiently bigoted, hateful, spicy, otherwise, it will be read aloud in the live chat. Unless you go far enough that Susan will shut us down. But do your worst, throw your worst at me, and I think that we've got some stuff here. But while you guys are coming up with something to talk about, that it would be sufficiently spicy, or bigoted, or hateful, or stupid, we're going to read the names of everybody who chatted in the live chat before. So, and we're not going to do the KTZed Redemption or the special report for that, because we interacted with you guys in the midst of the streams here. On Monday, we had KTZed, Quest Fanning, Arvolt, Wolfie Productions, Marie Maybe Gole. By the way, congratulations to Wolfie Productions. The announcement came in the midst of the live stream that Wolfie Productions is now a parent. So, mazel tov to that. Marie Maybe Gole, Sully Blue, Spartan, 0000 Superior 1, Randy Crush Saga, and New Tech 2 Tuesday gave us Sully Blue, Arvolt, Ron Helton, Harvey McLeod, KTZed, Marie Maybe Gole, Avenging Pineapples, especially if they're under the sea. Quest Fanning, A Gaines P, and Nasty Natty. On Wednesday, we had Ron Helton, Randy Crush Saga, Quest Fanning, Arvolt, Sully Blue, KTZed, A Gaines P, I had Quest Fanning written there twice. Because you use two different accounts, and usually I combine them, but I missed it at this one. MK Ultra, which is now MK Ulmo Bear, German Sanford Wee. Yesterday was a slow day. We didn't have as many of you chatting, but we still appreciate the people who did chat. Tell your friends, get more of them in here. Let's make this into something that I can't read on a Friday. I think you guys should do that. That's my challenge to you. Make it so difficult and so many names that I can't read it on Friday. Make it so that I have to spend the entire show on Friday just reading the names of people who chatted in the live chat. On Thursday, we had Quest Fanning, Arvolt, Marie Maybe Gole, Ron Helton, Randy Crush Saga, and MK Ulmo. And that was it. What's going on today? Which it looks like you guys are already being a little bit active here. Alright. Today, Quest Fanning's here. Good morning. Nailbender, I heard we're setting things on fire. No, we're not setting things on fire. The Russian forces are setting things on fire. The hell makes you think my standards for dating are that low? You're just mad you can't date me. I'm like AOC. You're just mad you can't date me, puppy. The best is when he realizes he should be reading until it's like halfway through. Yeah. How about Sean Hickman spelled? Is he on Twitter? That you would have to go ask Britt, because I'm not familiar with him myself. Ron Helton is here. User 8112, that's a new name. 550, good morning. Thank you, user 8112. Neil Bender has moved his fundraising to Give, Send, Go. That's probably a good idea. Did they call you and offer you a prayer as well? Quest Fanning says, I slam, you slam, we all slam for Islam. Quest Fanning says, you on the West Coast, 812. Probably. I just want to see something here quick. Which is weird because 812 would, I would have thought maybe an area code or something, but that is actually a Indiana area code. 812, Southern Indiana, Evansville, Bloomington, and Terre Haute. Pele P4T, you want to become famous? Buy followers, primes, and viewers on yourfollows.com. Should we try it out? Should we see what happens? Nailbender is going to Twitch. Banning is, how am I not seeing the spammer? Chillaga 1984 is here. Quest Banning says, like the Jaja Gabor. Ron Helton with the AOC sticker. It's sunny, says Quest. Yeah, because that's why people live in California. I still don't get it. Randy, are these earthquakes because of climate change too? They'll probably try to blame it for that. I can't remember, but remember Adam Schiff having seen the proof of Russia collusion. Fanning says 78 pages. That's like the meat of a Stephen King novel, even though it's still 500 pages. Fanning says it will/won't have been illegal. MK Elmo says Freedom Friday. You see MTG saying she didn't know who Nick Fuentes was? Yeah, I saw that. It didn't really matter to me, so I didn't pay a lot of attention to it, but yeah, I saw that. That is one honking honk. Randy says they would have to prove his claims are false, but that would require looking to any one of the claims. Quest Fanning asks, okay, yeah, runny nose. I don't know what it's been this entire winter, but yeah, as soon as I wake up, runny nose immediately. And I'm not sure what it is. Randy says Jen Psaki told people to go kickboxing, get a drink, and keep fighting. Yes. Horrible dog whistle. To go and honk something. Fanning says, funny the leftist bird dogs are the only ones hearing the dog whistles. So many gay lords. Gay lords. Randy says, we haven't seen fraud because we never looked. Luckily, random citizens have found over 1,000 illegal votes in Arizona for an election that's not the 2020 election, of course. Because there were no illegal votes in the 2020 election. That was free and fair, and nothing bad happened. Of course, Fanning says DC books are nothing but rough toilet paper. Bill Barr better. Instagram, sugar. Arbold says everyone is upset at Lindsay for calling an assassination. Gaddafi, Bin Laden, Soleimani, and Anwar al-Awlaki could not be reached for comment. Omar is actually right for once? Yeah, surprisingly enough. It wasn't exactly brave of her to come out against a terrible take and also to get a dunk on a Republican. Well, some people did do something. Randy says if someone in another country's government did that, we'd be mobilizing already. That's correct. Arbold says, we literally cruise missiled his tent. Randy says, yeah, the whole world is sanctioning them, other than oil products, which account for like 90% of the Russian economy. Ron Helt says, Lindsey Graham and McInsane were two key people behind arming Ukraine. This corrupt U.S. government created the situation. Thank you, Ron. Arbold says, I'm a dirty centrist because I believe governments are necessary, but that leaders should also be personally held accountable for their actions, including Putin, Obama, Trump, Elizabeth, Trudeau. The list goes on. Randy says nuclear material doesn't blow up in a nuclear bomb fashion due to fire. Arbold, don't try to insert logic where emotion is wanted. And then Randy also pointed out again the implication by the media that the nuclear facility will cause it to blow up. Bombing the facility will cause it to blow up like a nuke. Randy says, how much shelling did they do to only manage to start a fire in an unused reactor? I'm not sure. Carp says, America destroyed Iranian power plants. I still don't think it was a good idea, though. That's the thing. If you go and try to bomb out an active nuclear power plant, that usually turns out poorly for you. Arvold says, Telegram is a Nazi site. Are we the baddies.gif? Are we the bad guys? Randy says, that right there, they're talking about nuclear fallout, but purposely worded it to sound like it would explode. Quest Fanning likes Polish food. Quest, you know who else liked Polish food? Hitler. MK almost is not going to have the money for gas to get to the polls. Their plan is working. Yet another country coming out in public saying they're no longer respect America. Let's see. All of our enemies and now an ally. Keep it up, Brandon. Quest Fanning says, white hose speaker. Randy says, MK, life hack. Contact a damn institution and tell them you can't get to the polls to vote. They'll make sure you get there, as long as it's not the 2020 election, because there was nothing bad that happened there. They'll even make sure you get to 5 other voting places, honk honk, but not in the 2020 election. Fanning says, so if we drive 5% less. Then he also says, that's quite the black-pilled ending. It is. Harvey McLeod is here with a horrified cat face. No, it wasn't a kid's head. It was a grown-up. You better deliver a big white pill. No, we're just going to leave it on that one. And Fanning ends out the conversation by asking what's with the name change. And with that, we're going to head out of here for the day. So, yeah, let's go. Let's see what the week is. So, no streams this weekend. Let's get the outro music up here. Some things have come up in my personal life that I need to take care of in a very, very short manner. So I've got to figure some things out. I'm actually going to take a jump at something too. I don't know if it's going to be something that's feasible or possible for me, but I'll never know unless I ask. So, I mean, pretty much as soon as we're off air here, there's going to be a phone call being made, and I guess we'll see what happens with that. There's not a lot of details that go with that, but we'll see. There may be some changes here in scenery and life, and we'll figure out what happens with that. But come back and join us here on Monday for more Contemporary, because we'll be reading news headlines, including all the ones we couldn't get to today. We'll see if there's actually any Ukrainian news, and if there's anything that actually gets reported, because we're getting some major Ukraine fatigue. Otherwise, join us Monday night for the regularly scheduled KTZed Redemption. That's going to be fun. Make sure you guys go check out Daily Ignoramus, where I believe Mrs. Zed is going to be on, so we'll see what happens with that. And other than that, we're going to head out of here for the day. I got to go take care of some stuff, and we will see you here next time over here on Contemporary. And until then, I'm Jay Edgar. This is Contemporary. Stick around if you're on Twitch. We're going rating, and we will see you next time. Take care.